up on Chapman News. 1 year ago today, the worst fire in California history, a town leveled to the ground. We return to the scene. You won't want to miss our heartbreaking special report.
Sending a message to Trump or an election fluke? Big wins for the Democrats in Kentucky and Virginia. Is this a sign of things to come?
Woman abducted, taken into slavery, the fight against human trafficking in our own backyard. That and more this week on Chapman News.
From Dodge College of Film and Media Arts, this is Chapman News.
Good afternoon, I'm Brandon Pike.
And I'm Chloe DeVries. We begin today with the busy week in Washington.
Public hearings starting next week in D.C. You'll get to see and hear the president's accusers.
And more on the quid pro quo, the testimony about the president's alleged deal with Ukraine.
And he's back. Oust Attorney General wants his old job back. Jeff Sessions is officially running for Senate in Alabama.
But maybe the biggest news this week is the election results from Kentucky, Virginia, and Pennsylvania.
With more, we have Olivia Young to give us our political report.
Election Day 2019 flipped key Republican strongholds, including a governorship in Kentucky, contested seats in the Virginia state government, and local elections in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. Are these Democratic victories any indication of how President Trump will fare in 2020?
Our elections don't have to be about right versus left. They are still about right versus wrong.
The toughest fight came out of red state Kentucky between incumbent Republican Governor Matt Bevin and Democrat Andy Beshear. Beshear won by a slim margin of 5,100 votes, even though President Trump joined Bevin on the campaign trail. Bevin is now requesting a recount.
How do you like having President Trump in Rupp Arena?
He is a fantastic governor. He loves this country. He loves this state. This is a great state. And I guess I'm pretty popular here based on certain things.
Bevin's defeat in a state Trump won by 30 points in 2016 has caused speculation as to whether moderate Republicans have flipped on the president. But Bevin was not well liked to begin with due to his many attacks on educators.
I'm not sure whether to vote Republican or Democrat because I don't like either one of them.
And things may be getting much worse very soon for the president. On Wednesday, House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff announced that public hearings will begin next week with 3 witness testimonies. Top U.S. diplomat to Ukraine Bill Taylor, known to hold the most damning evidence of illegal dealings between Ukraine and the U.S., will be up first.
These witnesses are significant, and the White House understands they're significant. Based on the testimony the committees have already received.
Another blow to the president? Trump ally and U.S. ambassador to the European Union Gordon Sondland has backtracked on his first testimony, acknowledging a potential quid pro quo between the U.S. and Ukraine. But despite this new testimony, Republican senators like Lindsey Graham have taken a bold new approach.
What I can tell you about the Trump policy toward the Ukraine, it was incoherent. It depends on who you talk to. They seem to be incapable of forming a quid pro quo.
People close to the president are also feeling the heat. Trump's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, has hired his own lawyer as testimonies implicate him in the decision to withhold military aid from Ukraine. And former National Security Advisor John Bolton, who had a public falling out with the president, did not attend his scheduled hearing before Congress. Neither did White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, who was subpoenaed by the House Intelligence Committee for a hearing this morning. The New York Times is now reporting that Bolton is prepared to testify about multiple meetings on the campaign to pressure Ukraine. And making news in the middle of all of this is former New York mayor and billionaire Michael Bloomberg, announcing that he may enter the Alabama presidential primary as a Democrat, despite previous statements that he would not run. That's this week's political report. I'm Olivia Young. Back to you guys.
An inaugural event for Chapman's new Center for Freedom and Expression and Media Integrity is stirring up controversy on campus. Former Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders from the Trump administration and Robert Gibbs from the Obama administration are invited to speak at the Nixon Library. Emails exchanged between Chapman alumna Laura Hankey and Dean of Communications Lisa Sparks have gone viral across the Chapman community. The email read, "I and many of my fellow alumni are dismayed at the blatant disregard for both the truth and the integrity of the free press that she, Sanders, has shown. She has repeatedly, blatantly, and provably lied to the media on multiple occasions. Hinke continued, saying there are any number of participants that could have been chosen instead. Former press secretaries included both who are conservative and acknowledge the media as necessary to our democracy. Dean Sparks responded, saying, "The intent which you have missed is to have two press secretaries from strongly diverging political positions, able to speak at the same event and hopefully engage in a vibrant disagreement."
A manhunt is still underway for those responsible for the massacre of Mormon families near the Sonora-Chihuahua border on Monday. Three mothers and 6 of their children were killed in the gunfire. An additional 5 children were hospitalized. 2 of those children have been released. Authorities say they have found more than 200 shell casings from an American-made weapon at the scene.
The Justice Department has accused 2 former Twitter employees of using internal systems to aid Saudi Arabia. They allegedly used their positions to access information on American citizens. The FBI has charged Ali Al-Zabarah and Ahmad Abu Amo for acting as agents of a foreign power inside the U.S. Records show the Saudi government has been using Twitter to silence critics and gain information as far back as 2010.
An ongoing issue plaguing countries across the world is human trafficking. You may be surprised to learn it's happening right in our own backyard, just miles from the Chapman campus.
We have reporter Carol Melchior in Anaheim, a prime spot for human trafficking. Carol?
Thanks, Chloe. I'm here on Harbor Boulevard, known by law enforcement as the hotspot for human trafficking. Hundreds of cases occur here every year. Sadhvi Sunkara has more on this epidemic.
Surrounded by the busy borders of Disneyland and the booming business economy of Orange County is Harbor Boulevard, a hotspot for human trafficking.
It's everywhere. Think about it this way. It occurs on the street, and it occurs in motels, in hotels from very low end to very high end. You have it occurring through illegal escort agencies, at adult clubs. Each of them is huge, so you can imagine the extent of the problem here in Orange County.
In the past 2 years, over 400 victims have been trafficked in Orange County. In response, a human trafficking task force was established to curb the growing issue, which is still one of the most invisible crimes. The task force takes a proactive approach to regulate online trafficking, which is on the rise due to the increased usage of social media.
They're in looking for these girls that have prior history of sexual abuse, domestic violence, molestations, okay, no dad in the home, okay, no relationship with mom. They have all these issues with them. That's who their target is.
Professor Kelly Galindo created her documentary 26 Seconds, featuring survivors and NGOs in 9 countries worldwide. In each country, the motive behind sex trafficking is the same.
Sex trafficking is all about money. For the trafficker to make money. So Orange County is a hub where they want to come because they make more money here.
With the growing number of victims in wealthy areas like Orange County, there is a need for more resources to help them. The Anaheim Police Department has made great progress in creating a welcoming space for victims. In collaborating with survivors, they have transitioned to soft interview rooms.
And so for law enforcement, it really is the visual representation of that transition from the paradigm shift that we've gone through and see them as suspect to seeing them as victims. Not only seeing them as victims, but seeing some of them as survivors that are informing us as to what our response is going to be.
Orange County has various anti-human trafficking organizations that work in prevention, rescue, reintegration, and restoration.
Encourage people to actually do something, not just listen to a sad story, because it's somebody's life.
Chapman students can join the Freedom Coalition, a campus club working to fight against human trafficking.
The idea that there are individuals out here in this world who don't have the freedom that we do, and we need to do something about it. And so I'm hoping that, everyone who comes to our club and learn about us just know that we have to proactively help these people who can't help themselves.
Reporting for Chapman News, I'm Sadhvi Sunkara.
The Freedom Coalition Club is hosting a Thanksgiving event in where students can write to survivors of human trafficking. The club will release more detail on their upcoming benefit to raise money to a local anti-human trafficking organization. For Chapman News, I'm Carol Melchior. Back to you guys at the desk.
It's shocking that these cases happen so close to home. Thanks, Carol.
This week marks a one-year anniversary of the Thousand Oaks shooting that killed 12 in a college bar in northern LA. Hundreds in the community came together yesterday to honor the lives lost, with a healing garden dedicated to the victims. 12 stone benches, one to remember each victim. Chapman students were among those mourning.
When we come back, the worst fire in California history 1 year later. We have a special report on the town leveled in Return to Paradise.
You think getting dumped by text is harsh? Try getting dumped by a tennis ball. My ex-owner drove me out to the woods, yelled fetch, and by the time I brought the ball back, he was gone. Yeah, I was pissed. But the folks at the shelter helped me let go of my anger. I learned coping skills, like taking it to the hole. Boom! Now I'm ready to fetch again. But how about I throw and you run and get it?
One year ago today, the small town of Paradise was leveled by the Camp Fire, California's largest and deadliest wildfire. 85 people were killed on the ridge that day, and thousands of homes were lost. I know Paradise. My grandparents lived there. I grew up visiting there. So I went back to where it all happened.
I could die here. This could be the end of it for me.
I actually could feel my arm hairs singeing through the rolled up window.
I mean, I fought that shit for 20 years. Never thought I'd come home.
When you drive down the streets of Paradise, the first thing you'll notice are the mailboxes and the empty lots behind them. The footprints of homes that once were. This is what remains of the more than 18,000 buildings that were destroyed during the Camp Fire. Many of the lots in Paradise have been cleared, but some, like this one behind me, have remained untouched, frozen in time, their owners nowhere to be found. Before the devastation of the Camp Fire, Paradise was a small bedroom community, nestled in the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas. The people here were mostly retired, and those who did work commuted to nearby bigger cities. It was during their morning commute on November 8th when the news broke.
We're following breaking news out of Butte County right now, where a wildfire has burned at least 5,000 acres.
The sky looked different, the air felt different, and it was coming.
These are my grandparents, Wayne, a retired firefighter, and Nancy. They lived in this house in Paradise for more than 30 years.
I felt like whatever I could physically carry is what I should be grabbing because we wouldn't be coming back.
And that's when we looked out the front window and the flames were rolling over the top of the trees I showed you today. And I said, that's it, we gotta go.
I still get chills.
They were able to save a few key mementos, but many families had no time, like Jason, a local software engineer.
When I looked out the window, the fire was headed up this direction, so I literally opened drawers, grabbed clothes, and walked out to the truck. We didn't spend much time taking much.
There wasn't enough time.
There wasn't any time at all.
Jason and my grandparents were able to get off the ridge quickly, but many were not so lucky. Justin Kilgore, my childhood friend, was trapped on the ridge for more than 5 hours.
As soon as I opened the door, it was like getting hit by a wall. You look over the tree line and you just see the red glow. At a couple points when I was leaving, there was flames on both sides of the road. As much as I didn't panic, there were still moments where what if I don't get out of this?
Some decided not to evacuate at all and stayed to help save what little they could.
I saw fire in the canyon, both sides of the canyon, even over on the old skyway where I came through, and I just got down here as quick as I could.
This is Chris Main, my grandpa's buddy from the fire department, who owns this fish and tackle shop.
I knew I had a given amount of time, a couple hours before the fire actually got to me.
While protecting his business, the retired fireman noticed a nearby policeman.
And asked how things were going for him. He said, yeah, it's going okay. He said, I got a pregnant woman across the street that's in labor, and she's a high-risk pregnancy.
Chris jumped into action and drove the woman to the nearest hospital.
Got down there, I said, what do I do now? My car's here. So I walked back up here.
But Chris is modest. He walked nearly 5 miles through hellfire to get back to his shop. For some, it would be weeks before they would come back to see the devastation of paradise. But for others, it was just a few days.
At that point, up here was sort of, it would make me sick to be up here.
I got to the point with my wife that she couldn't look at it. She would have to play a game or be on her phone or doing something, so she wasn't able to see anything. It was just so hard for her.
For my family, returning was full of mixed emotions.
It's strangely exciting almost in a way, because you feel everything's gone. Everything is gone, and then you find a few things.
As we dug through the charred remains of the house, we took comfort in the smallest things that survived.
Oh. That blue right there.
Little reminders of the years spent there. But now, many of the things we held on to have lost their importance. The reality of life after the fire has sunk in.
But a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, it's not usable. I think you just grab it because it isn't broken, or it isn't, you want to have something.
Long after the fire was extinguished, it continues to make its mark on the people of Paradise.
Everything was interrupted. Made me realize what I have and what I want to do, and kind of just put my whole life in perspective for me that day.
For some, like Chris and his shop, the fire sped up an already tough reality for small towns.
The fire has absolutely aggravated the situation because it was hard to begin with, and now you got some of those that aren't going to come back.
But for Jason and many of the stubbornly independent Paradise natives, this is a chance to start from scratch, a chance to build a better community.
I see this as an opportunity, and it's not one that we would have chosen, but it's the one that we have before us.
The town is going to build up around us, and it's going to be great.
My grandparents have not seen the last year through the same rose-colored glasses. This year has been humbling.
And the idea of receiving help is tough. Really
Somebody
tough.
that's so used to just giving help. Yeah.
The lady with the socks, I don't know how she knew I didn't have any socks. I had on my tennis shoes. She says, you don't have any socks? I said, no, I don't. She said, I'm going to get you some socks. And she ran and she came back and she had a thing of 12 pair of brand new socks. I said, I need a pair. There's somebody else that needs socks. Find more 12 people. So I took a pair.
For a man who fought fires for 20 years, standing on the other side as the victim has special meaning.
We were always in the side of the business that we put out the fire and so forth. But when we did, and we got ready to leave, there'd always be somebody standing in the nightgown, and their house is gone. You don't perceive that as when you go home, your house is gone, and you're standing there in your nightgown.
But they've kept their fighting spirit and are cautiously optimistic about what the future holds.
But the fire is history, and so you can't back that up. You can't go back and change it. So to dwell on it is a waste of energy. You got to be looking the other direction and see where we're going. And right now, we're just kind of going as that door opens in the morning as she goes to work. That's what we're doing. And next morning when the door opens, we'll do it again.
Wow, Kylie, that was so powerful. But being there last weekend, what's the future look like for Paradise?
Well, the future of Paradise is still really uncertain. The town doesn't have water. The people there have to go to a local church to pick up a case of water every day just so they have something to drink. Cell service is still really spotty, electricity is unreliable, so the infrastructure in town is really lacking. But there's still some hope. People like Jason are, really dedicated to the idea of rebuilding Paradise. People like Justin want to see it bring its character back. But there are also people like Chris who are moving on.
Well, your grandparents have such an incredible story. I can't even imagine what they've been through.
Thank you. It's been a tough year for sure. I think my grandparents, as you just saw, are in a place that a lot of Paradise is at. This place of limbo, not really knowing what the future holds.
And it's crazy to think that we're at the 12-month mark from this fire and there's still so much devastation in Paradise.
And this week also marks the anniversary of the Woolsey fire that happened right here in SoCal. We're seeing the same trends this year with fires scorching the state. Thankfully, so far, nothing has been quite as destructive.
So Jules, what is the latest information on this year's forest fires?
Well, luckily, we don't have as many fires to report as we've had in the last few weeks, and the Kincaid fire, which burned for more than 2 weeks, has finally been contained as of Wednesday night. We've been seeing higher than usual fall temperatures here in Southern California. However, the central, southern, and eastern parts of the country are experiencing a surge of Arctic cold this week. On this map, you can see some cooler than usual temperatures hitting some major cities with a low of 15 degrees today in Minneapolis. However, this won't be the coldest air of the season, as we're expecting another surge to bring record-breaking temps at the beginning of next week. Rapid City, South Dakota is expected to have a low of 7 degrees on Monday and Tuesday. But it does seem like the opposite here in California, as right now it is a warm 80 degrees and the air quality is not so great today, so you might want to keep a lookout for that if that's something that bothers you. For the rest of Orange County, we have 84 in Westminster, along the coast 78 in Newport Beach, high of 81 in Laguna. Going more inland, we have a high of 89 today here in Orange, 83 in Irvine, 87 Mission Viejo, and 80 in San Clemente. Going a little more north, we have a high of 75 in Santa Barbara, high of 81 in Avalon, 85 in Los Angeles, high of 89 in Anaheim, just like here in Orange, 61 in Big Bear Lake, and a high of 92 in Palm Springs. Now for our 5-day forecast, we have a high of 89 today, like I said. Tomorrow, it'll get a little bit lower at 80 throughout Sunday, and then Monday, it'll go even lower at 78. Tuesday, it will rise back up again to a high of 84, and we're looking at mid to high 50s for our lows. That's the weather update for this week. I'm Jules Rector, and enjoy that warm weather this weekend.
A new memorial honoring fallen soldiers and veterans was unveiled in Mission Viejo Wednesday morning. Officials and veterans watched the reveal of the Battlefield Cross sculpture, which represents a soldier who was killed in action. It stands on top of a pedestal displaying the logos of the 5 branches of the military. Veterans Day is this coming Monday, a day to acknowledge and thank those who serve the nation. We spoke with one veteran who served for 4 years in the Air Force and is now a screen acting major right here at Chapman.
Veterans Day is for the honoring of all of those who serve. I know the Air Force gets kind of a bad rap for being the easy branch, but it was still it was rough for me, just being pushed in a way physically and mentally that I had never experienced up to that point in my life. I was only 19, so I hadn't really been through anything that was as demanding as basic training was, and then eventually my service. It's a sense of a communal sense of gratitude that I also contribute and just so happen to take from as well.
In addition to boot camp and other training, Justin Steyerwalt served as a cryptolinguist, learning both Urdu and Hindi.
A shocking report shows there are more than 840,000 blind spot-related car accidents every year in the United States. But a teenager from Pennsylvania has found a solution. 14-year-old Alana Gassler won a $25,000 prize for creating a prototype designed to eliminate a car's blind spots. Gassler competed against 29 other middle schoolers and hopes to patent her design so automotive companies like Tesla will use her design.
Coming up after the break, celebrities both alive and dead are dealing with CGI image theft. I know, scary, right?
Campus Sports Show, hear from head volleyball coach Mary Cahill following last night's playoff game. Stay tuned.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. As it turns out, we have very similar personalities. And this cat makes me make art because he's always motivating me to take pictures of him, to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. It's just that simple. Well, he's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Hello everyone, I'm Carissa Davis and welcome to the Best Campus Sports Show. Chapman's volleyball team has advanced to the SCIAC Championship game following last night's 3-2 win in the first round of the playoffs. The Panthers will play Claremont Mudscripts tomorrow following their 2-1 comeback victory over Cal Lutheran. Chapman split the season series against CMS with each home team winning. This time around, with the SCIAC Championship on the line, Coach Cahill is trusting her players and embracing the underdog mentality.
We really don't have anything to lose. You know, they're seated high in the nation and they're the #1 in our conference, so we just need to go in there and play our game, and hopefully we'll have a different outcome.
Another team taking on Cal Lutheran in the playoffs as the women's soccer team traveled up to Thousand Oaks. Overtime is needed to decide the winner in this one, and in the end, it's Cal Lutheran scoring a sudden death goal. The Panthers season is now over, with the ladies finishing 3rd in SCIAC. Chapman football is currently 7-0 and has a chance to clinch its 2nd SCIAC title in 3 years tomorrow. If they win their game against Claremont Mudscripts, they will be SCIAC champions and secure an automatic bid to the Division III playoffs. The team is currently one of 12 undefeated teams in D3 and is 1 win away from becoming the winningest team in school history. Last week against Pomona, senior defensive back Nathan Parkin had 3 interceptions, including 1 in the final minute, that helped keep Chapman's record perfect.
Nate Parkin had 3 picks last week against Pomona, so I want to see how tough it is going up as a receiver against him. How we're going to score it is 1 point if the receiver makes the play, 1 point if the DB makes the play, and 2 points if the DB gets a pick. Are you ready? Let's go. Against Pomona, you had a game-winning interception. In that scenario, are you looking for them to throw you the ball, or are you nervous that, you know, if you give up a touchdown, the game's over?
Oh, I'm hoping they throw the ball my way. I mean, the entire drive I was kind of baiting that quarterback to throw, my way.
So you're a senior, and this Saturday is your last home game here at Wilson Field and the regular season. What's going to be the one thing that you're looking to take away from that game?
I mean, we got a lot on the line, undefeated season, and we win, we clinch SCIAC, so that's what we're really hoping to do on Saturday.
Well, the athletes remain undefeated. Chapman football's undefeated. You can see Nate and the rest of the Chapman football team hopefully lift that SCIAC Championship trophy on Saturday. For Brad Benson and Nate Parkin, this has been another edition of Athlete of the Week.
On to some national headlines, starting with Angels shortstop Andrelton Simmons being selected as Wilson Defensive Player of the Year. Unlike the Gold Glove, the Wilson Award is given to one player at every position as opposed to one player in each league. Simmons has won this award 6 out of the last 7 years. Another Angels player that has received recognition for his defensive play might not be returning to the team, as the club has declined outfielder Cole Calhoun's $14 million option and instead paying him a $1 million buyout. Calhoun is now a free agent, but general manager Billy Epler has not ruled out Calhoun returning to the team in the winter on a lesser contract. Mike Trout, however, is going to stay an Angel for the foreseeable future. The former AL MVP is up for the award again after hitting for .291 with 104 RBIs and 45 home runs, despite missing the last month of the season. These numbers also helped Trout win his 7th Silver Slugger Award. That's the latest in sports this week. Let's see what Brandon has for us today in entertainment.
Coming up on entertainment, did you go to Chris Brown's yard sale? If not, don't worry, we'll fill you in.
They call me Maxie, but I prefer tripod. I was your above-average four-legged homie, and then wham, bam, minivan. Some people pity me. Now that's lame. I still run, fetch, and swim. And the ladies love me. I'm the ultimate wingman. Just don't ask me to high five.
This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love. Remember that to love America is to love all Americans, because love has no labels.
We have a beautiful campus, but some of us have the urge to travel. Case in point, Semester at Sea, in which students spend an entire term shipboard, traveling all over the world.
Our own Jackie Gold has been out at sea for months. We asked her to report for Chapman News in a series of special reports we're calling Gold Around the Globe. Jackie starts her reports in the city of Dubrovnik on the Adriatic Sea in southern Croatia. The city was founded in the 7th century, but Jackie found the tourists are looking much more modern.
Croatia is known for its natural beauty. From remote beaches to coastal cities, it seems like a fantasy. But the natural beauty isn't the only fantasy in Croatia. Dubrovnik was the set for several episodes of the fantasy show Game of Thrones. People come from all over the world to take pictures at King's Landing, participate in Game of Thrones tours, and buy products from the show. Nearly every street in Dubrovnik has Game of Thrones stores, and it seems around every corner there is a filming location from the series. On the surface, it seems as though Game of Thrones has successfully marketed itself to tourists around the world.
It's one of those exceptional circumstances where it's almost been too successful.
Simon Hudson is a globally recognized expert in film tourism. He says that this oversaturation of tourists could actually be harmful to the city.
The challenge is managing that so that it's sustainable, so that the tourism numbers don't become too high, so that the service quality suffers. I sensed a feeling of, our culture's being diluted. They're not coming to see our beautiful buildings, our history, our culture. They're coming because of Game of Thrones.
And Hudson thought correctly. I spoke with a waitress who was born and raised in Dubrovnik. While she wanted to keep her identity hidden, she made sure that her feelings were quite clear.
When people ask us about the Game of Thrones, it becomes very offensive. Just numbers of tourists who are less interested in culture grew.
Dubrovnik has shifted from the Game of Thrones to the Game of Tourism. The mayor is making efforts to manage crowds in the city, restricting the number of cruise ships entering port, the number of people permitted in city walls, and even the number of tables restaurants can have.
I hope that in the future that Dubrovnik manages its tourism to the extent that it can be sustainable, that we come back 10 years' time and still people can have a wonderful experience.
But this wonderful experience might already be diminished. Hudson says that although residents may be benefiting financially from film tourism, the city may lose its authenticity in the process.
To be sustainable, the tourism has to be managed, and if that means limiting tourists, so be it.
The ultimate question that places like Dubrovnik pose is, how does a destination capitalize on tourism without losing their culture in the process? While Dubrovnik explores this question, tourists will undoubtedly continue to explore Dubrovnik. This has been Jackie Gold for Gold Around the Globe. See you next time in Morocco.
Reporter Jackie Gold is away at semester at sea, but we'll hear from her again soon when she docks in Morocco. Safe travels, Jackie. Chloe, have you seen Game of Thrones?
You know what, Brandon? I have not seen Game of Thrones.
I haven't either, but what's your excuse?
Okay, well, I have a good excuse. I don't actually have HBO, so I don't have the means of watching the series. So
See, I don't have an excuse. I do have HBO, and I just haven't even watched it. But I've heard so many people love it and rave about it that I might just have to binge watch it this weekend.
Maybe you should check it out.
I don't even know if I have time. But with more on entertainment this week, we have Brandon Lance Garnsey in our Entertainment Center. Brandon?
Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Brandon Lance Garnsey here for yet another entertainment rundown. Now we have a lot to talk about and not a lot of time, so let's get right into it. As winter approaches, cuffing season looms over us all. In the latest December issue of British Vogue, Emma Watson described herself as definitely not single. She says that she's self-partnered. And girl, me too. But you know what? That means that we won't have dates for this year's Met Gala. The theme will be about time, fashion, and duration, with co-chairs Nikolai Gisquet of Louis Vuitton, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Emma Stone, Meryl Streep, and Met Gala staple Anna Wintour. Honestly, I'm still recovering from last year's Met Gala looks, so I really cannot wait to see what the celebs are wearing this year. Maybe I should have gotten my outfit from Chris Brown's yard sale. That's right, the singer hosted a 2-day yard sale this week at his home in Tarzana and sent invites to his 58 million followers on Instagram. And they definitely showed up, along with the LAPD, who wanted to shut down the event for causing chaos in the neighborhood and violating the city's code. Some fans were arriving the morning before to wait in line, but the wait was definitely worth it because they left with the rapper's designer clothes for only a couple $100s. Believe it or not, James Dean is coming back from the dead. For the upcoming film, Finding Jack, the cultural icon is being brought back to life through full-body CGI and another actor's voice. Dean will star in the Vietnam action drama, and the film's goal release date is Veterans Day next year. But it's already getting skeptical reviews. Celebs such as Chris Evans, Elijah Wood, and especially Robin Williams' daughter Zelda are criticizing the film's production company, Magic City, for their ethics in casting. Williams says, "This is puppeteering the dead for their clout alone, and it sets such an awful precedent for the future of performance." Now, the directors of the film did obtain the rights to use the young star's image from his own family, but let us know where you side on these ethics by tweeting us at Chapman News. James Dean himself may not have had a say in this case, but these two other A-listers do. Ellen DeGeneres and Sandra Bullock are fighting to protect themselves by suing over 100 companies. The stars claim the companies use their image without permission in ads selling beauty and dietary products. The lawsuits aim to expose the sneaky celebrity endorsement theft industry. All right, now I'm just really super paranoid that somebody is catfishing me out there, somewhere, somehow. All right, that's all we have for entertainment this week. I'm Brandon Lance Garnsey. Back to you guys.
Well, I don't know about you, Brandon, but that CGI stuff is kind of crazy.
I know, it's really weird that they're bringing actors back from the dead to star in films that they're creating right now.
Well, don't miss an episode of Chapman News. Check out our YouTube channel at chapmannews.tv and follow our social media accounts at Chapman News. I'm Chloe DeVries.
And I'm Brandon Pike. Have a wonderful weekend.